The constant hum of hover cars outside his apartment window had become white noise to Tom Miller by now. He sat at his kitchen table, staring at the official document from the Universal Exchange Program. The words, "mandatory participation," seemed to mock him from the paper. "I don't need a roommate," he muttered to himself, running a hand through his messy brown hair. His small apartment was his sanctuary, filled with half-finished projects and engineering textbooks. More importantly, it housed his workshop, his private space where he could work on his ideas without anyone watching. The doorbell chimed precisely at 9:00 a.m. Tom took a deep breath and walked to the door, knowing his life was about to change. When he opened it, he found himself face to face with his new alien roommate. Rose stood there, her iridescent skin shifting colors slightly in the morning light. She was roughly human-sized and shaped, but that's where the similarities ended. Her silver eyes blinked at him, and the slight glow they gave off made Tom step back involuntarily. "Greetings, Thomas Miller." "I am Rose," she said, her voice carrying an odd musical quality. "That is my assigned Earth name. My actual name would be difficult for your vocal cords." Tom noticed she had only one small bag with her. "That's all you brought?" "My species requires few physical possessions," Rose explained, stepping inside. Her movements were graceful, almost too perfect. "Most of what I need is stored digitally." As Tom showed her around the apartment, he carefully steered clear of his workshop door. "Kitchen, living room, bathroom, your bedroom." He pointed out each space. "And that room is private. My workshop, off limits." Rose's silver eyes lingered on the workshop door. "Understood. Though I admit to curiosity about human engineering practices." "Yeah, well, curiosity killed the cat," Tom mumbled. "I am familiar with that Earth saying," Rose replied. "Though I find it illogical. Curiosity is essential for scientific advancement. Also, I am not a feline." Tom couldn't help but crack a smile. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. Until he remembered what he was working on behind that workshop door, and his smile faded. Over the next few days, they fell into an awkward routine. Rose spent most of her time studying human culture and behavior for her research, while Tom divided his time between graduate classes and his workshop. She was a quiet roommate, at least. One evening, as Tom was heating up leftover pizza, Rose looked up from her datapad. "Your species has achieved much in a short time," she observed. "Yet you are still held back by inefficient technologies." Tom gripped his pizza plate a little tighter. "We're doing just fine," he said defensively. "Maybe we're not as advanced as your people, but we're getting there." "I meant no offense," Rose said, her skin shifting to a slightly darker shade. "Merely an observation. Though I wonder why you seem defensive about this topic." Tom quickly changed the subject, but Rose's words stuck with him. Later that night, after she had retired to her room, he slipped into his workshop. The soft blue glow of his project illuminated his face as he worked, determined to prove that humans could do more than anyone expected. What he didn't notice was the faint shadow under the door, where Rose stood silently, her enhanced hearing picking up the strange humming sounds from within. Her silver eyes narrowed slightly as she analyzed the unfamiliar energy signatures leaking through the gaps. "Curious," she whispered to herself, making a mental note to investigate further. After all, she reasoned, if Thomas Miller was simply working on standard human technology, why would he be so secretive about it? As she finally walked away from the door, Tom continued working inside, unaware that his secret project had already caught the attention of exactly the person he was trying to hide it from. The game of cat and mouse had begun, though neither of them knew exactly what was at stake yet. The humming sound started at exactly 2:47 a.m. Rose lay in her bed, silver eyes fixed on the ceiling as her enhanced hearing picked up the subtle vibrations coming from Tom's workshop. This was the third night in a row she'd noticed these unusual sounds. Unlike human ears, her auditory system could detect specific frequencies. The noise coming from behind that locked door wasn't like anything she'd heard in her studies of Earth technology. It had an almost familiar resonance, but she couldn't quite place it. During the day, Tom appeared increasingly exhausted. Dark circles formed under his eyes, and he drank what Rose calculated to be an unhealthy amount of coffee. Yet there was something else about him. A barely contained excitement that showed in his quick movements and the way his eyes lit up whenever he emerged from his workshop. "You appear to be suffering from sleep deprivation," Rose commented one morning, watching Tom fumble with the coffee maker. "This could impair your cognitive functions." "I'm fine," he mumbled, though the slight shake in his hand suggested otherwise. "Just busy with grad school stuff." Rose's skin shifted to a questioning blue-green. "Your university records indicate no major projects due for another 6 weeks." Tom froze. "You checked my records. They are publicly available to all registered roommates," she explained. "I was concerned about your health." Before Tom could respond, a metallic clang echoed from his workshop, followed by a muffled curse. His face went pale. "Automatic cleaning system," he said quickly. "It runs sometimes." Rose tilted her head. "I was unaware Earth cleaning systems operated independently at this level." "New prototype," Tom said, practically running to his workshop. The door slammed behind him, followed by more mysterious sounds. Later that week, Rose observed Tom bringing in packages. Her enhanced vision caught glimpses of their contents: unusual metal alloys, quantum stabilizers, and what appeared to be a miniature particle accelerator. None of these items should have been available to a human graduate student. One night, as Rose pretended to watch human entertainment programs, she tracked Tom's movements. He made 7 trips from his room to the workshop, each time carrying components wrapped in static-proof bags. The energy readings from the workshop were getting stronger. "Your project must be quite fascinating," she said casually when he passed by. Tom nearly dropped the package he was carrying. "Just normal engineering stuff. Nothing special." "Indeed." Rose's skin flickered with skepticism. "The energy signature suggests otherwise." The color drained from Tom's face. "You can sense energy signatures. My species evolved near intense radiation fields. We developed certain sensitivities." She stood up, taking a step toward him. "The frequencies coming from your workshop are familiar." Tom backed away, clutching his package. "It's nothing. Really. Just standard human technology." "Standard human technology doesn't produce quantum fluctuations that make my skin tingle," Rose said softly. "What are you really working on?" "Thomas Miller." "I have to go," he said, practically diving into his workshop. The locks engaged with multiple clicks. Rose stood there, listening to the increasing hum behind the door. Her species had strict protocols about monitoring developing civilizations, but something about this situation felt different. The energy signatures were becoming more refined, more focused. Almost like. Her eyes widened as realization struck. But that was impossible. Humans weren't supposed to have this level of understanding for at least another century. The workshop hummed louder, and Rose made her decision. Tomorrow, while Tom was at class, she would find out exactly what he was hiding. Her people needed to know if humans had somehow acquired advanced technology, or even more concerning, if they had developed it on their own. As she retired to her room, the workshop's glow seeped under the door, casting strange shadows on the walls. Inside, Tom worked feverishly, unaware that his secret was about to be discovered, and that his alien roommate's curiosity had finally reached its breaking point. Rose waited exactly 17 minutes after Tom left for his morning classes before approaching his workshop door. Her heart, or what passed for one in her species, beat rapidly as she pulled out a small device from her pocket. The universal lock bypass was technically forbidden for non-emergency use, but her growing concern about the energy signatures justified its use. At least that's what she told herself. The device hummed softly, interfacing with the Earth-made lock. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, to her surprise, the lock resisted. Tom had somehow modified it with security features that shouldn't exist on Earth yet. "Fascinating," she whispered. adjusting her device's settings. After 3 more attempts, the lock finally yielded with a soft click. The workshop door swung open silently, revealing a scene that made Rose freeze in the doorway. Her silver eyes widened, and her iridescent skin shifted through a rainbow of colors in rapid succession, a sign of extreme shock in her species. The room was filled with holographic displays showing complex quantum equations. In the center stood a device that by all rights shouldn't exist on Earth for at least another century. A quantum engine core, but unlike any she'd seen before. It hummed with a soft blue glow, its internal components spinning in perfect harmony. Impossible, she breathed, stepping closer. Her trained eyes recognized elements of her people's technology, but there were modifications, improvements even, that she'd never seen before. The containment field was elegantly simple yet more stable than standard designs. The power distribution system was revolutionary. Rose's fingers traced the air above the engine, her natural ability to sense energy fields telling her more than any instrument could. The quantum fluctuations were perfectly balanced. No waste energy, no instability. This wasn't just advanced technology. It was elegant, beautiful. Moving to Tom's workbench, she found notebooks filled with hand-drawn diagrams and calculations. These weren't copies of stolen designs. These were original works, showing the evolution of ideas, failed attempts, and breakthrough moments. Tom had actually figured this out on his own. A holographic display caught her attention, showing a simulation of the engine's capabilities. According to the data, this design could achieve faster-than-light travel with 30% less energy than current alien technology. Rose checked the calculations 3 times, but they were correct. "How did you do this?" she whispered to the empty room. Her people had always considered humans clever but primitive. They were supposed to be centuries away from this level of understanding. Yet here was proof that at least one human had not only grasped advanced quantum mechanics, but had improved upon it. The sound of a key in the front door's lock snapped Rose out of her amazed trance. Tom was back early. She quickly looked around, knowing she should leave, but she couldn't tear herself away from the engine's mesmerizing glow. The workshop door creaked behind her. "I figured you'd find your way in eventually." Tom's voice was surprisingly calm. Rose turned slowly, her skin shifting to a pale blue of embarrassment. "Thomas, Tom is fine," he said, stepping into the workshop and closing the door. "And before you say anything else, yes, I built it. No, I didn't steal the designs. And no, I'm not working for any government." "But how?" Rose gestured at the engine. "This level of quantum engineering should be impossible for a primitive human." Tom's voice held a hint of bitterness. "Yeah, I've heard that before. That's kind of why I built it." Rose looked back at the engine, then at Tom. For the first time, she saw him not as a simple human student, but as something else entirely, a mind that had done what her people thought impossible. "You realize," she said slowly, "that this changes everything." Tom nodded, moving to stand beside her as they both watched the engine's gentle pulsing. "That's kind of what I was hoping for." An uncomfortable silence filled the workshop as Tom and Rose stood facing each other, the quantum engine humming softly between them like a mechanical heartbeat. The blue glow cast strange shadows on their faces, making the moment feel even more surreal. "You've been studying our technology," Rose said finally, her silver eyes fixed on Tom. It wasn't a question. Tom ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Not exactly. I mean, yes, I've observed alien tech when I could, but most of this came from my own research." "Your own research?" Rose's skin rippled with disbelief. "The quantum harmonics alone should have taken decades to perfect. Our scientists spent generations developing these principles." "Maybe that was the problem," Tom said, moving to his workbench. He pulled out a thick notebook filled with diagrams and equations. "Your people had generations of established theories. I didn't. I looked at the problem fresh, without any preconceptions about what was or wasn't possible." Rose picked up the notebook, her fingers trailing over the pages of hand-drawn calculations. These equations, they're unorthodox, but brilliant. You approached quantum mechanics from a completely different angle. Because I had to, Tom explained, warming to his subject. I couldn't replicate your technology, so I had to find my own way. Look here. He pointed to a complex diagram. Your people use quantum field manipulation to contain the energy. I found a way to harmonize with it instead. Rose's skin shifted to a deep purple of concentration as she studied the designs. This shouldn't work, but it does, and more efficiently than our methods. She looked up at him sharply. Do you understand what you've created? A better engine, Tom said simply. No, Rose's voice was intense. You've created proof that humans are capable of far more than we believed. This could change everything about how my people view Earth. Tom's expression hardened slightly. That's kind of the point. We're not just some primitive species you can pat on the head and tell to wait a few centuries. We can understand things. We can innovate. And what exactly were you planning to do with this innovation? Rose asked, her tone careful. I don't know, Tom admitted, sinking into his work chair. I needed to prove it was possible. Every time I read about alien technology, every time I heard about how humans weren't ready, something inside me just burned. I had to show we could do it. Rose was quiet for a moment, her skin cycling through thoughtful shades of blue and green. I should report this, she said finally. Protocol demands it. And then what? Tom stood up, his voice rising. Your people confiscate my work, erase my memories. Tell me it's for my own good. No, Rose said softly. Then my people would have to acknowledge that their assumptions about human potential were wrong. They would have to reconsider everything about how we interact with Earth. Tom blinked, surprised. You're not going to try to stop me. Stop you from what? From proving that species can surprise each other. From showing that progress doesn't always follow a predetermined path. Rose's skin shifted to a bright, determined gold. No, Tom. I'm not going to stop you. Then what are you going to do? Rose moved closer to the engine, watching its perfect quantum dance. I'm going to help you. What? Tom stared at her in shock. Your design is brilliant, but there are still improvements we could make together. Things I know from my training, combined with your unique perspective. She turned to face him. Unless, of course, you don't want to work with a member of the species that underestimated you. For the first time since she discovered his secret, Tom smiled. You know, he said, pulling up a second chair to his workbench. I think I'd like that. The quantum engine hummed behind them, its blue glow seeming somehow brighter as human and alien sat down together, ready to break new ground in more ways than one. Over the next few days, Tom's workshop transformed from a secret hideout into a collaborative laboratory. Holographic displays filled the air with swirling equations as human and alien worked side by side, pushing the boundaries of what both thought possible. Your approach to quantum mechanics is like nothing I've ever seen, Rose said, her skin glowing with excitement as she examined Tom's original designs. You treated quantum particles almost like music. Tom looked up from the component he was adjusting. I used to play piano before engineering took over my life. I kept seeing patterns in the quantum fluctuations that reminded me of harmonics. Everyone else was trying to force the particles to behave. I just tried to find their natural rhythm. That's why it works so efficiently, Rose realized, her silver eyes widening. You're not fighting against quantum uncertainty. You're working with it. My people have always approached it as a problem to be controlled. Tom nodded, putting down his tools. That's what I've been trying to say. Sometimes a fresh perspective is more valuable than centuries of accumulated knowledge. Humans might be younger than your species, but that doesn't make our ideas less valid. Rose's skin shifted to a thoughtful shade of blue. You're right. We've become rigid in our thinking. We believe we know the correct path of technological development for every species we encounter. But look at this. She gestured to the engine. You've proved that progress doesn't have to follow our predetermined path. The engine hummed softly in the background as Tom stood up, stretching after hours of work. Can I ask you something? Why did you decide to help me instead of reporting this? Rose was quiet for a moment, her iridescent skin rippling with various colors as she considered the question. Because you reminded me of why I joined the Universal Exchange Program in the first place. I wanted to learn, to understand other perspectives. Instead, I came here with preconceptions about human capabilities. And now? Tom asked. Now I understand that brilliance doesn't follow a timeline. Your species may be young, but minds like yours. She gestured at the complex equations floating around them. You see things differently. That's not a weakness. It's a strength we've been ignoring. Tom walked over to the engine, watching its gentle pulsing. You know what's funny? When I started this project, I was angry. I wanted to prove your people wrong, to show that humans weren't just primitive beings who needed to be guided and controlled. And now, Rose echoed his earlier question. Now I realize it was never about proving anyone wrong. It's about proving that we can all be right in different ways. Your people's knowledge combined with human innovation. He smiled. We could do amazing things together. Rose moved to stand beside him, her silver eyes reflecting the engine's blue glow. There's something else you should know, she said softly. I've been analyzing your design more thoroughly. The quantum harmonics you've created, they're not just more efficient than our current technology. They're opening up possibilities we never even considered. What do you mean? Look here. Rose manipulated the holographic display, bringing up a new set of calculations. The way you've structured the quantum field creates micro-resonances we never thought possible. With some modifications, this engine could potentially do more than just power spacecraft. It could revolutionize energy production, medical technology, even planetary terraforming. Tom stared at the calculations, the implications slowly sinking in. So this isn't just about proving humans can match alien technology. No. Rose's skin glowed with an intense golden light. It's about showing that different species working together, combining their unique perspectives and approaches, can achieve things neither could do alone. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the quantum engine's peaceful pulsing. What had started as one human's secret project to prove a point had become something much more. A bridge between two species, a proof that progress comes not from following established paths, but from daring to find new ones. So, Tom said finally, a smile playing at his lips, ready to help me change the universe. Rose's skin shifted to a determined bright silver. I thought you'd never ask. The warning message flashed on Rose's personal communicator, casting an ominous red glow across her face. Her supervisors were getting suspicious about her lack of detailed reports. They wanted answers, and they wanted them now. Is everything okay? Tom asked, noticing her skin had shifted to a worried gray tone. Rose quickly tucked the communicator away. My superiors are requesting a full report on my research here. They've noticed irregularities in my energy readings. She gestured to the quantum engine. Your invention doesn't exactly hide its signature. What will you tell them? Tom's voice was quiet, but she could hear the tension in it. Before Rose could answer, another message arrived. This one made her skin pale to an almost translucent white. They're sending an inspector. Tomorrow. Tom's face hardened as he moved protectively toward his engine. We could hide it. Shut it down temporarily. The residual quantum signatures would still be detectable, Rose said, pacing the workshop. And they'll scan the entire building. Standard protocol when they suspect unauthorized technological development. So this is it. Tom's voice cracked slightly. They'll just take it all away. Rose stopped pacing, her silver eyes fixed on the engine they'd worked so hard to perfect. The past weeks flashed through her mind. The breakthroughs, the failures, the moments of shared triumph when they solved a particularly difficult problem. She thought about the way Tom's unorthodox approach had challenged everything she thought she knew about quantum mechanics. No, she said finally, her skin shifting to a determined crimson. I won't let them. But your career, your position, are less important than this. Rose gestured around the workshop. What we've created here isn't just an engine. It's proof that cooperation between our species can lead to innovations neither of us could achieve alone. Tom watched as she began rapidly typing on her communicator. What are you doing? Making a choice, Rose said, not looking up. I'm sending a message to the Scientific Council. Not my supervisors, but the actual council itself. I'm telling them everything. Everything. About your breakthrough. About how you approached quantum mechanics from a completely new angle. About how our collaboration has led to improvements neither species could have developed independently. Her fingers flew over the device, and I'm attaching all our research data. Tom moved closer, reading over her shoulder. Won't you get in trouble for going over your supervisors' heads? Probably, Rose admitted, her skin flickering between determined red and nervous purple. But the council values innovation above protocol. If they see what we've achieved. She paused, looking at Tom. There's just one thing. What? I need your permission to submit this. Once the council knows about you and your work, everything changes. You won't be able to stay hidden anymore. Tom was quiet for a long moment, staring at the engine he'd created in secret. Finally, he straightened his shoulders. You know what? Good. I'm tired of hiding. If they want to see what humans are capable of, let's show them. Rose's skin brightened with approval as she added the final details to her message. There's no going back after this. Was there ever? Tom asked, managing a small smile. Besides, you're not the only one making a choice here. I could have kept working in secret, kept trying to prove something on my own. But working with you, he gestured at their shared achievements. This is better. Rose pressed the final command, sending their research to the highest scientific authority of her people. The message confirmation blinked on her screen, and she let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Now what? Tom asked. Now, Rose said, her skin settling into a calm blue, we prepare to defend our work. Together. The quantum engine hummed behind them, its steady pulse a reminder of what they'd achieved through cooperation rather than competition. Whatever came next, they would face it as partners, proof that sometimes the bravest choice is to trust in something bigger than yourself. The grand hall of the Interstellar Science Council buzzed with anticipation. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy filled the circular chamber, their attention focused on the center platform where a quantum engine pulsed with a gentle blue glow. Tom pulled at the collar of his formal suit, feeling distinctly out of place among the assembled alien dignitaries. Beside him, Rose's skin shimmered with a mix of nervous yellow and confident gold. Ready, she whispered. As I'll ever be, Tom replied, gripping his presentation notes tighter. The council head, an imposing figure with crystalline features, raised their hand for silence. We are here today to witness something unprecedented. A joint presentation of new quantum technology, developed through collaboration between a member of our scientific community and, they paused, as if still processing the concept, a human engineer. Tom stepped forward, his voice steady despite his racing heart. Thank you, honored council. What we're about to show you isn't just a new engine. It's proof that the best innovations come from combining different perspectives. Over the next hour, Tom and Rose demonstrated their engine's capabilities. They showed how Tom's musical approach to quantum harmonics, combined with Rose's deep understanding of established principles, had created something entirely new. The engine didn't just match existing technology. It surpassed it in ways that made even the most skeptical council members lean forward in their seats. The energy efficiency is remarkable, one council member noted, their multifaceted eyes gleaming with interest. And you achieved this without access to our standard quantum laboratories. Sometimes limitations breed creativity, Tom explained. Working with basic tools forced me to think differently about the problems. Rose stepped forward. That's exactly what we've been missing. By assuming there was only one path to technological advancement, we've been blind to other possibilities. The council head raised an appendage thoughtfully. You realize this changes everything. Our protocols for dealing with developing civilizations were based on the assumption that certain discoveries must happen in a specific order. Maybe it's time those protocols change, Rose suggested, her skin glowing with conviction. Instead of waiting for species to reach arbitrary technological milestones, we could be working together, learning from each other's unique perspectives. A murmur ran through the assembled crowd. Tom watched nervous expressions turn to thoughtful ones as the implications sank in. Finally, the council head spoke again. We have reached a decision. This collaboration will serve as a model for a new program. Joint research initiatives between our peoples, with both sides contributing equally. Tom felt a weight lift from his shoulders as Rose's skin burst into joyful patterns of color beside him. Furthermore, the council head continued, we are authorizing the establishment of the first Human-Alien Joint Innovation Center. You two will lead it. After the ceremony, as the crowd dispersed, Tom and Rose stood looking at their engine. No longer a secret project hidden in a workshop, but a symbol of what was possible when different species worked together. So, Tom said, ready to run a research center. Rose's skin rippled with amusement. As long as you promise to keep thinking outside the box, or as you humans say, keeping it weird. Deal. Tom grinned. Though you know this is just the beginning, right? There are so many other areas where we could apply these principles. Medical technology, environmental restoration, deep space exploration. One universe-changing invention at a time, Rose advised, though her skin glowed with excitement. Though I must admit, I'm curious to see what other impossible things you humans might come up with. As they left the council chamber together, their engine being carefully packed for transport to its new home, Tom thought about how far they'd come from those first suspicious days as roommates. What had started as his secret project had grown into something far bigger, a bridge between species, a new way of thinking about progress, and proof that sometimes the best discoveries come from the most unlikely partnerships. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities neither of them could have imagined alone. And somehow, that made it even better.